Hi, everyone. We truly apologize for the technical issue. We were not able to be connected with the people attending the event in the hall there in Cabo Verde. So we are going to start since we have a lot of people joining us. So we are going to start our panel now. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Lua. I am an administrative assistant for YALDA, the Youth Alliance for Leadership and Development in Africa. That's the organization that has prepared this special event, this youth special event that will be focused on harnessing youth innovative ideas to finance Africa's resilient economic recovery. So I just wanted to remind everyone all the people joining us today's session, to please type your questions addressed to our panelists using the Q&A box. You will see the Q&A box on the down your screen. And also to our panelists, I would like to remind you to please activate your camera. Keep your camera on at all times, even if you're not speaking, to further encourage people to interact with our panel. Also, if you want translation, it is on the right-hand bottom corner. You can just click on the word map and you will see your translation in Portuguese and French. I don't know if Raymond has now joined us, but I would like to introduce Dr. Raymond from Undp Regional Bureau for Africa to officially welcome us to today's discussion and give us his opening remarks. Raymond, are you on? All right, I guess Raymond is not on. So I'm just gonna continue with the panel. And so I just wanted to know, as I mentioned earlier, that today's event will deliberate on the ways to accelerate Africa's post-COVID-19 economic recovery and how the youth, us, can partake in this effort. So this panel today will cultivate the willingness of youth and young people as change makers to actively participate in addressing challenges that their communities, region, countries face, given the impact of COVID-19, and how to truly finance Africa's development. So the debate today will be around three main questions. So the first question would be, how can we ensure that youth are empowered and have the necessary tools that enable them to propose innovative strategies that can actually be implemented to promote the rapid and sustainable economic recovery of the African continent? Also, how can this SDGs contribute to alleviating the challenges Africa is facing in a post-COVID era? Lastly, what are the opportunities that the AfCFTA presents for the youth in Africa? So it's my pleasure truly to introduce our amazing panelists for today's, who are young practitioners from all over African continent and truly harnessing Africa's youth innovative ideas to finance Africa's resilient economic recovery. So I'm gonna start with Mr. Soshan Raphael Kosa. He's the founder and CEO of Lisa Private Equity, and he's from South Africa. We also have Jessica Costa. She's the co-founder and partner of Seeds Food, and she's from Cabo Verde. And we have Mr. Boom Jr. III. He's the co-founder of Africa Startup Lab, and he's from Cameroon. Next, we have Lolwa Awad. She's the founder and CEO of Cielito, and she's from Egypt. And we have also Joshua Mawerere. He's a consultant on the Youth Economic Empowerment Program with Habitat for Humanity, and he's from Uganda. Last but not least, we have Bitania Lulu Berhanu, and she's YALDA International Head of Branches from Ethiopia. All right, so I'm really, really positive that we are all going to learn today from this great and very diverse panel on how we as young people from Africa and the diaspora can be involved in the development of our continent. So without further ado, let's start the panel discussion. And I'm gonna call upon Mr. Sushangan Rafael Ntateko. So the first question will be addressed to you. So I just wanted to know, with the sudden surge of the pandemic, which has drastically slowed down economic growth across the continent, we see that to navigate the pandemic and adapt to the new normal, many strategies are being explored, and a lot of young people on the continent are willing to take action and be involved in building the Africa that we all want, but they are lacking the know-how. So as a young entrepreneur, what are some innovative tactics that you believe the youth can implement to finance the development of Africa? And what can they do to gain financing for their ideas so that they can be part of the development of Africa? So up to you, on to you, Sushangan.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Yeah, sure.
Welcome to all our fellow participants and everyone who's joined us. It's a lovely day in South Africa, quite sunny. I hope it is sunny wherever you guys are as well. Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting question given the current era that we're living in, the post COVID-19 world, as it were. And a lot of young people are finding themselves in very challenging positions where a lot have had to become entrepreneurs through circumstances. And what we're seeing is a lot of innovative businesses have come up through the COVID-19 pandemic, not just from a tech perspective, but even from a agriculture and other areas perspective. So it's an interesting time for young people, because there's a saying that never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think a lot of young people have taken up innovative solutions to help their communities and to help rebuild their communities, as it were. But the one area that young people still face a challenge in, particularly in entrepreneurship, is the area of finance, where having good ideas is not enough. You obviously need financial backing to get those ideas to workable solutions. And the continent itself doesn't have a robust finance industry, which we could compare to the West, for instance. But what we do have is we've got very innovative communities. And what I often say is that actually the solutions for funding exist within our communities. We've just not used them in the mainstream areas of financing businesses. So for instance, take for instance here in South Africa, we've got what are called stokvels. And these are community saving schemes that people use, whether to save for, usually it's for groceries in December. Others use them to save for school fees, various other things. But it shows that within our communities, there is a culture of savings and pooling money together to do certain aspects of our daily lives. So what it's not been geared to currently is towards the entrepreneurial space. And I think young people have an opportunity now to begin using that sort of community type knowledge to then begin self-funding some of their initiatives. And within the community of young people and within our communities, begin raising that type of funding for our businesses. And I think that's where the key lies outside of mainstream financing.
Thank you so much. And that was really, really interesting to know that, we know that the young people in Africa are not lacking. They are not lacking the innovative idea. They are very talented, and we see all these great ideas coming from them. And I agree that the solution is knowing how to finance those ideas. Having great ideas is good, but also knowing how to finance your project is even better. So I'm now going to turn to Jessica Costa. Thank you so much, Rafael, for this very great, insightful information that you just shared with us. So Jessica Costa I know with your background, you are an engineer and agricultural engineer. So I wanted to know, agriculture being an industry that can provide an engine for economic growth in Africa due to its large potential expected returns. We know that agriculture represents actually about 25% of the continent's total GDP, bringing in more than $100 billion annually and employs about 75% of the population. So there's no doubt that there's truly a huge potential for growth in this sector. So although Africa has 60% of the world's arable cultural land, the continent still spends billions of dollars on the import of goods, foods, has millions of people in acute food insecurity, and the pandemic has further exacerbated these numbers. So with all this in mind and given your background, what do you think are some innovative ways that will help to keep those billions of dollars on the continent? And what do we need to do in order to invest that money in Africa?
Yes. Thank you, Elizabeth. And first, I want to thank the organizers and participants. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be part of this high-level discussion on financing Africa's post-COVID-19 development. I'm here to represent Seeds Foods. I want to introduce Seeds Foods so you can know what the platform is about. Seeds Foods is a youth-led think and do tank promoting local innovation in agriculture and food system in the African small island developing states through action, research, capacity development, and impact investing. And we start this platform in the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic because we believe building resilient food systems is vital to end hunger in Africa and ensure food security in the seeds. Answering the questions, indeed, COVID-19 has revealed the huge vulnerability of the food systems and increased the food insecurity in Africa countries and in Cabo Verde as well. So it's now clear that the agro-food sector is our last chance, and we need massive investments in the sector in order to increase the resilience of our communities. Indeed, it has been proven that agriculture is the key for the social and economical growth in any country, and especially in Africa, because we have great potentialities in the sector. And it's kind of a shame that we import the majority of what we eat, knowing that we have the possibility to produce our food, and we cannot continue doing the same things and expect a different results. We have to change our situation, and for this, we have to change our strategy. And as Thomas Sankara said, who feeds you controls you. So we must invest in food processing industry, and with this, we will promote the development of climate smart value chains, especially in Sahel. And these investments will help us to promote resilient local economy, to create jobs and provide livelihoods to millions of people, and and we will reduce our dependence on the foreigners. I will give two examples. In Cape Verde, like in many other of African countries, there are periods of years when we have a rich production of fruits and vegetables, and it end up being waste. With a smart investment, we should create an industry to transform these fruits and these vegetables and to conserve them. So we create jobs, we add value to our products that later can be exported. Another example is the case of the cacao. we know that Africa is the largest producer of cacao in the world, but unfortunately, we have farmers that have never tasted a little bit of chocolate in their lives, and we have to change that. Changing this with the investment of great value should be a creation of an industry that produces chocolate or base chocolates food. Like this, we add value to our national product, and it can be exported. So the future of the African countries lies on the creation of food processing industries.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jessica, for this truly very, very insightful, because it was very powerful, your intervention, talking about all the food that we import. We have all the resources to create, to produce our own food, transform them and commercialize them and export them, bring in money on the continent instead of importing and sending the money out. So that was really, really powerful. And then just to quote to say the quote that you said again, who feeds you truly is the one who controls you as well.
Exactly.
So yeah, we should really be empowered. And as you said, building food, a resilience in food system will in turn ensure resilience of our community. And that was very powerful. And I really thank you for your intervention. So now I'm gonna turn to Boom Jr. III. So the question that I have for you is that, every time we speak of financing or investment of large-scale projects, such as the development of a continent, it is almost inevitable to think of banks, companies, governments, policymakers, and financial institutions. And studies have shown that financial reforms around trade agreements can drive rapid economic growth for the continent. And this is the topic that you particularly tackle with DABA, the social alternative investment platform that you have co-founded, that allows investors of all levels to find investment and trade vetted high growth African companies. So in what ways can democratizing investment on the continent can restore and boost the economic growth for Africa?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for your question. And thank you, everybody that is in the audience. So yes, I believe that there's power in participation. Today, if you look at who finances Africa and who is participating in the capital markets, both private and public, on the African continent, you have more traditional and institutional investors, right? They play their role, they're needed. But if you look at who is missing from the investment landscape across the African markets, it's the retail investor. It's individuals like you and I, and everybody, that is here in the attendance. And that is essentially what we are looking to do at DABA. And for people that might be slightly confused, I was introduced as the co-founder of Africa Startup Lab, what we do there is a nonprofit to empower entrepreneurs. But through our experiences helping a lot of entrepreneurs across the African continent, and over the past year and a half, we've built a community of over 800 entrepreneurs. We've realized that there was a large amount of investable companies and projects that were not getting funded because they might not fit the mold or the mandate of more traditional and more traditional investors. So that is really why we set to launch DABA, which DABA is, like Elizabeth mentioned, on the journey to democratize investing for investors of all levels of sophistication across the entire African market. And the reason being that we believe that there is a lot of power that sits within the wallets of each and every one of you. Across more developed markets, such as the US and other European countries, a lot of the capital markets has been driven by individual retail investors. But for Africa, because there is inadequate, for multiple reasons, so one of which being the inadequacy of the financial infrastructure to drive investment capital in and out of the African capital markets, that's part of the reason why retail investors are not participating. In addition to a lack of information around the opportunities that abide on the African continent, or a lack of investment intelligence to vet or understand what opportunities to place their money in. So we believe that if the retail individual investor is given the tools and the power to not only find investment opportunities that match their investment profile, risk appetite, and interest, but also execute on that investment, and then later on track the performance of that investment, you will see that more individuals will begin participating and flowing money into the African, both private and public capital markets. As a consequence, we will be able to see more projects being funded of multiple scales, because again, individuals have different investment mandates, different investment preferences, different risk profiles and risk appetite than more traditional or institutional investors. So more projects getting funded, and that ultimately leads to bolstering the economic growth across multiple African markets. So that is essentially the journey that we are on, and we believe that there's power in retail. If given the right tool to invest in the African market, we will see economic growth across the continent.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I truly resonate with that. There's a lot of power that we have as individual. We think that all the finance or the investment might come from the big entities, which is not necessarily true. And I think what you said, empowering individual, just like you and I or everyone attending this session today, it can also be a great way of kind of putting the money in Africa's companies, African-owned companies. And yeah, thank you so much, Boom, for your intervention. Truly appreciate. So to our teaming audience, you may direct your questions to any of our speakers using the Q&A box, as I said, before you can find the box down on your screen. So thank you so much for that. And now I'm going to turn to Lolwa Awad. And for you, what I want to ask is that Cielito, which is the footwear brand you have created out of food waste and genuine leather, as to not limit the African products and development in the field. So via this innovative way of recycling food waste, what is fascinating is that you have actually attached sustainability to the approach you have regarding development in Africa. So I want to know what obstacles do you encounter in terms of imports of your raw materials? And most importantly, since we are not going to focus on the problems, but for the solution. So most importantly, how to address those obstacles so that Cielito can not only import from other African countries as well, but also do business in a secure economic climate.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you for having me today. I'm truly honored to be part of this great panel and to discuss the opportunities and financing in Africa. So Cielito was born out of my love for manufacturing in Africa, for having truly African products that are a great quality that can compete on an international level with other brands, and that it can stand between other international brands and be a very good example of what we can manufacture in Africa. Cielito has both genuine leather, yes, and vegan leather, which is made from pineapple peel and the pineapple leaves that are thrown away every season. So it's essentially waste, yes. And also from the cactus fruit, which is also thrown away, and the peel is thrown away. The reason why we've chosen to do this is because there are so many companies out there and brands out there that are producing genuine leather, which yes, we do produce, but we do have a focus on sustainability. But there are very, very few, and there are actually less than 100 brands worldwide that produce sustainable leathers, whether it is from recycled plastics or upcycling, or whether it's to do with vegan leather. And the fact of the matter is plastic never goes away. No matter how many times you recycle it, not every kind of plastic is actually recyclable. And no matter how many times we work around using plastic over and over again, it does not work out. Sustainability is the future. Essentially, it's our way forward. If we do not get on the sustainability train, if we do not hop on the ecological and environmental train, then Africa will miss a lot in terms of manufacturing. The future of manufacturing now is for renewable energy, is for reducing water, it's for producing things that will not have a negative impact on the environment and will not leave a huge CO2 footprint. So that is what Cielito is essentially trying to make by producing shoes that use 40% less water than genuine leather shoes, shoes that are comfortable, that stand the test of time, that take years, shoes that after 250 to 300 years turn to dust. So the shoes will not be there in 250 to 300 years, and it will go back to absolute soil. And shoes that are comfortable, that are wearable, that are chic, that are nice, that can really benefit the whole of Africa. That being said, we still make shoes and bags from genuine leather because some people still do prefer it. But we still try to produce it with minimum energy in terms of electricity or minimum energy in terms of water. I do believe that in order for us to get financing and order for us to join the manufacturing train, which I do believe that Africa can really do really well on, we do need to attach ourselves to the concept of sustainability, to longevity, and to having unique ideas. There are so many, and I was just down in South Africa 2 weeks ago, in Durban for the African Trade Agreement panel, and I realized that we produce not so much more products than I thought we did. I knew that obviously Africa was great and we manufacture a lot of products, but by going there, I met so many youth that manufacture so many unique products that have sustainability or that have an edge to them or that are organic. And I feel like we do need to shine a light on that. We need to focus on that, and we need to show people that we have this in Africa.
Thank you so much for that. And Cielito is really, I went on your website, and you have a great branding, by the way. It's very nice, and yeah, everyone should check it out. It's Cielito Egypt. So thank you so much for your intervention.
It's very sweet of you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I see that Dr. Raymond has joined us. So if you like, you can share some thought on what the speakers have already said, or just give few remarks about our panel today.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and thank you all for joining what I think is one of the most effective panels during this year's African Economics Forum. My name is Raymond Gilpin, and I'm the Chief Economist in the Regional Bureau for Africa at the United Nations Development Programme. You might ask, why do we need a youth panel at the Africa Economics Forum? Why are these economic theorists and practitioners concerned about youth enterprise and the youth contribution? There are 4 reasons. I think the first is that if Africa is to advance, we cannot sustain the current low levels of productivity. Africa's productivity has to increase in terms of numbers, the volume, in terms of the value, and also in terms of the added value. A lot of value, in a lot of global value chains, African countries and the African continent accounts for less than 5% of the value. The youth, on the other hand, they're just listening to all the excellent presentations and the innovations and the entrepreneurship and the drive. This is where we trigger the value added. This is where we do a lot more in terms of beneficiation, whether you are in the service industry, the manufacturing industry, the agricultural industry. We really need this drive and enterprise to get us across the line. So in terms of productivity, it is crucial. It's not an option. It is crucial that we have the youth on board. Second important thing for us economists, for us to think about an ecosystem where we increase the supply of goods and services, we have to boost demand. And Africa has a comparative advantage in terms of this youthful population whose market potential is immense. The youth are the people who are leading consumption, who are determining the direction and the pace of consumption. The youth are the people who are already connected and doing these things. Every time I hear us talking about, youth empowerment, we need to empower the youth. I think, yes, that's a nice concept, but I believe that the youth are already empowered. What we need to do is remove the hurdles in the way of the youth doing business, making profits, connecting in a way that's affordable and easy. And then we're going to see the increase in domestic demand. And once we see the increase in domestic demand, this market that you're all creating becomes more lucrative. And so the youth aren't an add-on. The youth are an essential element in Africa's economic transformation. Third reason is because a lot of Africa's youth, and primarily because we haven't got the institutions and the regulations right in many countries, the youth are in the non-formal sector. I do not call that sector an informal sector because I think there's a lot of pejorative association with it, but it's a non-formal sector. The only difference between you and Facebook is that Facebook is registered and you are not. You're both doing business. And so Africa's youth, you, the entrepreneurs, should hold your head up high, that you are a non-formal sector. In the United States, it's called the gig economy. They have a nice, sexy term for it. Why are we looking down on the non-formal sector in Africa? This is Africa's survival economy, but it's also Africa's transformative economy. Because as you grow and as you become more connected, you then become the movers of technology. You then become the reshapers of economic relationships. And then you then become the ones who drive where finance should go, where investment should go, how partnerships improve. And so there is, from a labor force perspective, we need the youth to be fully engaged and integrated. And by integrated, I don't mean forcing people or saying you and the non-formal sector must be in the formal sector. I mean ensuring that we have policies, programs, and incentives that ensure that the youth's enterprise and vibrancy is captured in what we call the economic transformation of Africa. Fourth reason is when we're thinking about financing and financial instruments, Africa's banking sector, to a large extent, still mirrors the colonial banking system, where banks and financial institutions were all about facilitating the extraction of goods, services, and people from the continent to elsewhere where more value is added and where wealth is created. Now we want to flip that on its side. We do have a number of youth who are stepping out. There are estimates that each year between 13 to 15 million youth enter the job market. Only 3 to 3.5 million jobs are created every year. Many people will see that as a downside. We have so many jobless. I see it as an opportunity. We have a lot of people who are out there hungry for opportunity, to be able to contribute. And so how do we ensure that the financing that they need is affordable, it's accessible, it is accelerated, and it is adaptable? If we could ensure those four things, I have no doubt in my mind that Africa's youth would be transformative. Let me close by using a soccer analogy. If you look at most professional soccer teams, they build a team around the star player. When you buy a player, you know, the team's formation all changes, the format changes because they want to make sure that they're leveraging their star asset. Africa's star asset is Africa's youth. We need to rebuild our economies and our economic institutions and policies around what makes the youth tick, what makes the youth successful, what makes the youth stop this tradition of just subsistence economies to wealth creating, asset creating economies. So this is why at the African Economics Conference, the youth are not an afterthought. It's not something we do and we say, okay, in addition, let's talk with the youth. It is because the youth make good economics. The youth make good transformation. And the youth are not just the future in a glib type of way, but they are actually the asset around which we should rebuild and reshape Africa's economies. Because from a production, from a consumption, from a supply, from a trade, from a demand, from a technology perspective, this is where Africa is pointed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raymond, for this very powerful remarks. So we are truly honored to be given this opportunity to, showcase all the youth potential that we have here in the panel. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to voice our ideas. And thank you for acknowledging that youth needs to be empowered in Africa as well, because truly Africa is youth. So thank you so much for this remarkable talk that you shared. So we are going to continue our panel discussion, and now I'm going to turn to Bitania Lulu Berhane. So I wanted to know I wanted to know your thought on this question. So like the pandemic has negatively affected the continent's growth and journey towards development, and many people have lost their jobs and as businesses shut down, pushing millions of them into extreme poverty. They were already in poverty, but the pandemic was not a help either. So based on your expertise, what can the youth do to attract more investment in Africa for its resilient economic recovery? Answer.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are now.
Great. I was having a bit of a problem with my computer. Thank you so much, everybody. Every speaker that has spoken before me had great insights, and it makes my job very easy, especially Dr. Raymond, the analogies that he gave about having to build policies around the needs of young people, and also the fact that he underscored that non-formal sector should also be really focused upon to build a resilient economy for Africa has been one of my points that I was going to deliver today. So moving on to the question that you've asked. I mean, young people are leading COVID-19 response efforts in many countries, not only in Africa, but around the globe. And they will be very critical in both recovery efforts and future resilience. But even beyond COVID-19, given that there's substantial and rapidly increasing numbers in Africa, African youth play a very pertinent role in shaping the continent's future development. Young people bring fresh perspectives and very innovative solutions to multifaceted problems that Africa is facing. And because now we're in a very increasingly digital world, young people deploy technological tools to disrupt against these stagnant strategies that really hold Africa back. So I think a successful recovery plan for Africa will be dependent on building a very reliable digital infrastructure, which will provide access and support to youth-driven innovations and leveraging the use of emerging technologies. So when I say this, we've seen that in the past couple of years that the pandemic has hit, digital platforms, data, and internet connectivity have been three major tools that have helped salvage and create new jobs, promote new products, attract investments, as well as provided access to information about the global situation in the face of the pandemic. So these three tools, along with technology, they have facilitated access to services, purchase of products, secure money transfers from the comfort of our homes. We've been working from home as well. So on a global scale, digital tools have really assisted governments to manage some of the worst case scenarios as well. So the current youth are the most tech savvy. Our generation is the one that has the internet access, that are using smartphones. And we're very much informed. We know where to gather our information, and we know how to mobilize really big movements. So because the current generation is the most tech savvy of the entire generations before us, with the use of our skills, technology, and supporting data, young people can really accelerate the growth of relevant industries, such as agribusinesses, so that these industries that are fit for value chain integration grow. And also this facilitates the development and integration of financial markets, which is very key to enhance investment in the recovery plan of Africa. And we've covered that the previous entrepreneurs have told us that young entrepreneurs can really drive and promote Africa's economic fast recovery. This is, we're all in agreement on that. And they can really contribute to the enhancement of trade in Africa, investments and industrialization. But if there are enabling policy and infrastructures to promote the digital innovations in solving the continent's development challenges. So this is where meaningful engagement of youth comes to place in decision-making processes and implementation and monitoring of these developed intervention plans for the recovery plan, so that young people can give their innovative ideas, of course, and to ensure that these interventions are actually solving the problems on the ground. We need to ensure that young people push for evidence-based impact evaluation as well. So they hold their governments accountable, and they can also push themselves to be meaningfully included, so they can have evidence-based impact evaluation. And it's extremely crucial to apply an intergenerational lens in these crisis response and recovery measures to build resilience and also to translate these political commitments to actionable programs. Yeah, the previous generation has plenty of experience, and we have a lot to offer, like I said. So bringing these intergenerational lens can actually create lasting impact. Last but not least, I would like to touch upon the AfCFTA. The AfCFTA provides a very incredible momentum and dynamism to the process of African economic integration, and also the structural transformation of African economies. In this era of integration, Africa's most valuable values or resources are the young people, which are over 200 million aged between 15 to 24. And they will undoubtedly play a leading role in the implementation of the AfCFTA, which will surely feed into the recovery plan for African economies. One of the things that YALDA is doing, for example, is the AfCFTA campaign for young people to know about the existence of this framework, to understand it, and to leverage from it. So AfCFTA really presents a chance for young people to push it into the lasting recovery plan for Africa.
Thank you so much, Tanya, truly for your input on this topic. So last but not least, I'm going to turn to Joshua Mawedede now to have your idea on the topic that we're talking about today. So it is estimated that by 2030, 375 million youth in Africa will reach the working age. So this is also in line with what Dr. Raymond was saying. And we know that Africa's workforce, which is mostly young, is indeed an unprecedented opportunity for its economic growth. So given your professional background in marketing, how should Africa's youth and young entrepreneurs market themselves and their products or businesses in order to make them more appealing to investors? So Joshua, over to you. Okay. I'm not sure if we can hear you, Joshua. Joshua is answering from the auditorium. So I think that's why we are not hearing what he's saying. Dividend, Manish, can you advise?
Hello, Elizabeth. I have prompted them to unmute themselves.
Okay. Okay. Again.
Oh, okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
I think there was a technical problem. Elizabeth, now you can hear me?
Yes.
Thanks very much. I was saying I want to put my appreciation to the team, the panel that I've come with, and also want to extend my appreciation to UNDP, to the African Development Bank, and also to the economic, the EECA. Also want to extend my appreciation to YALDA International for enabling us to be here. The question you've posed is very, very crucial and important. How can the young people market themselves and their products? But before I go down to it, I want to put across some statistics so we understand what we talk about when we mean young people. 64% of the youth in Sub-Saharan Africa are involved in retailing.
No, we imagine
and this means that they are involved with products which is a crucial contribution for many institutions. Secondly, they are involved in hotel and restaurant businesses. This means that they are at the forefront of adding value to the food chain and agriculture. This also means even if it means putting ingredients together and making a meal, it means that the young people are adding value to agriculture and at the forefront of training. Also, I want to note that 97% of the youth in the retail businesses, these businesses are low growth businesses.
No,
time to grow and and then also make little profits for the young people. So they are gradual and slow process growth businesses.
No,
4% of which these businesses only create employment for them. So most of the businesses are being run by so it's important to approach this discussion from the fact that many of the young people are part of the business economics or the enterprise economics of Africa, but they are running small businesses that have less appreciation in terms of products and activity, and this is unlikely to be sustainable in the many years to come. I also want to note that 65% of the local businesses
I don't know.
most of the 65% are run and administered by primary school youth. 80% of the high growth businesses have started and run by secondary or post-secondary or tertiary. About education, the quality of education, and also putting emphasis on post-primary education. I also want to note some statistics that 57% of the businesses offer the same products and services, and so there's less differentiation. So when we're talking about how do we market this kind of businesses in the running, there's also a big percentage of
excuse me, Joshua. There's a technical issue, so there's a background noise, so it's very unbearable for the people joining online. So I don't know if the technical team can help fix that, because it's really, we can barely hear you. because they're speaking at the same time. I think it's much more better now.
Está a funcionar melhor.
Okay.
Muito obrigada. Vamos falar como a juventude pode promover-se nos seus produtos. Primeiramente, por ênfase, os governos africanos têm que encontrar uma forma de promover a juventude nos seus negócios. Essa é uma responsabilidade que os governos não podem fugir de como essa juventude pode promover-se. Criar um ambiente de negócio favorável para atrair negócios nos nossos países. Enquanto estamos a falar de negócios com a juventude, o governo tem um grande papel nesse caso. Temos que ter incentivos para a juventude do governo, temos que ter políticas do governo também, que quando juntamos tudo isso, o governo poderá posicionar-se.
Perspective, the young.
Mas também numa outra perspectiva, os jovens têm de conseguir acessar, eles têm de poder desenvolver as suas capacidades. Se vão entrar nos investimentos, vocês têm de avançar nesse tipo de economia. Eu não sei se me consegue ouvir ou não, mas nós estamos a ter um feed português no canal.
Broadcasting Portuguese and most people are listening in English. So could we just have the speaker and not Portuguese streaming? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raymond. I've also told the technical team to kindly advise on that. So Joshua, so when we have the correct channel, would you mind just giving us the bullet point of what you said, just kind of summarize your idea, because half of it we didn't really get it, unfortunately. So just bullet point and just summarize your idea in 1 to 2 sentences.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Elizabeth. So I was talking about what things need to be done to attract investment for the young people and their businesses. And I had talked about the government side. We need governments, African governments, to position the young people for investment. And this talks about governments putting incentives to attract investors. And when investors come into the African continent, then the young people can tap into these processes. But also we need to see a lot of incentives for the young people. Investors want to find a group of young people who are already on the move. People don't invest in wild ideas, they invest in what they are seeing in action. So we need to have incentives for the young people to invest and start in small businesses so that the investors can come in and take on the bigger part to bring in capital and invest with them. But on the other side, the youth themselves, if they are to start businesses and attract investors, they need to undertake the following. One, they need to develop diverse skills. If you're going to attract investment, you need to be able to do multiple of things as a young person. One, you need to understand some finances, you need to understand basic computer skills, because you need to keep your data, you need to email, you need to be able to WhatsApp, you need to use basic IT skills. And also you need to understand procurement and how you attach your business to the whole business economic ecosystem. This requires you to understand some small of these diverse skills that are like marketing, like IT skills, like procurement, like bookkeeping, so that when an investor comes, they are able to track you on book. Secondly, you need to be in a position where you're solving a problem. Many businesses that you come across for the young people, some of them are not solving a particular problem, so they are not worthy investing in. So as a young people, we need to position our businesses as solution ends for particular issues that attract investment. On the other side, also, I want to engrave the fact that if young people need to attract investment, they need to be, their businesses need to be using ICT to operate. This talks about if you need to have some systems talking about your cash flows, you need to have a social media presence, you need to have client records. This is when an investor comes in, they are able to know where you are, where are you from. They can refer to the clients that you supplied last year and refer to clients that you're trying to source in the future. So there should be a track record that can be followed by investors. That's when investors will quantify and also qualify your business. Young people need to adhere to corporate governance practices. And this is very key. Many of the businesses in Africa have been started by young people, but many of them don't see their first birthday. If they do see their first birthday, they don't exist up to 50th. And this is because of corporate governance practices. We're talking about things like accountability, things like transparency, things like integrity, things like responsible investment, and also things like excellency in whatever we do. So if young people want to attract investment, they need to adhere to corporate governance practices. Also, young people need to remain curious. Investors are looking for companies that are curious, that are disrupting, that are not settled for less. Companies that are on their toes to disrupt the normal and make sure that they skyrocket into new spaces. So young people need to remain curious and steady fast. Also,
Joshua, can you wrap up in like 30 seconds?
Oh, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
We need to foster collaborations. If we are to get investment from investors, young people need to come together. If you're doing this, even in the same industry, same sector, find how you do value addition, specialize, and collaborate so you can attract business and investment in a sector or on your full process. Other than working in silos, which many young people do, and they replicate the same products, so there's less differentiation. Otherwise, we need to work together in collaboration. Also, young people need to sell their vision. If you are to attract investment, you need to talk about your vision of the company, the culture of the company, and you must understand how it works out for your country. I want to submit. Thanks very much.
Thank you so
Moderator.
much, Joshua. Thank you so much for very powerful points that you've made. We can truly see that you did a very powerful SWOT analysis of young people in Africa and how they can kind of market themselves to attract more investments. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much, everyone, for your insightful intervention on this topic centered around financing Africa's post-COVID-19 development. I'm really sure that all the participants who are joining us, whether virtually or in person, are currently inspired to start implementing many of these ideas that you have shared with us today. So since the objective of this side event is actually to feature innovative strategies to accelerate Africa's post-COVID-19 recovery and how the youth can partake in this effort, we are gonna now turn to an open debate and lively interaction. So I'm gonna turn to our speakers for the next phase of this channel. So Bitania, you've carefully heard what Bloom Junior III was saying about his point he made regarding his questions. So what are your thoughts that you can share with the audience today?
I will be challenging Boom on how he highlighted how retails are very the key, basically, for investment intelligence, the key for successful economic recovery plan for Africa. And he's also highlighted the lack of opportunities and investment intelligence for those smallholder retailers and individual investors. Building on what Joshua has just spoke about how entrepreneurs need to invest in themselves with informal and also informal skills and soft skills. How do you relate all the things that were suggested from Joshua and entrepreneurs and retailers pushing themselves out to join the investment sector? And also, if you have any other suggestions on what you've said about tools are needed for these individual investors to really invest in Africa.
All right, thank you very much, Bitania. So just as a quick clarification, I did not mention that there was a lack of opportunities. I actually believe that opportunities are plentiful, and which is why we need to build proper infrastructure to capitalize on the African opportunity. I did mention that though there is investment intelligence available, it is not readily available for the retail investor, right? If you think about proper investment intelligence to drive investment into specific projects or sectors or whatever the case might be, institutional research is not cheap to access, right? But the more traditional institutional investors have access to that intelligence. The average retail investor cannot pay several thousands of dollars to be properly informed as to where to invest and how to invest, right? So making that the investment analysis and intelligence that is currently institutional level grade, consumer friendly and consumer accessible, in my opinion, is one of the ways to educate average retail investors of all levels of sophistication to be able to deploy their money and feel confident and comfortable with the opportunities they're deploying their money into. Now, on the flip side, with respect to the point that Joshua made with on how to make businesses more attractive, right? I believe there are several different ways to go about it, and a lot of the points that he mentioned, I agreed with, and I think depending on the sector, the type of business, the consumer base, like who you're selling to, where you're located, you might want to lean into several specific ways to kind of attract investment or attract the right partners or customers, right? But at the end of the day, it all boils down to access and visibility, right? And that is why I believe that that's why we're building the platform that we are building, because we want to essentially give an outlet for private companies, and this is specifically for the private sector, for private companies that are strong, resilient, high growth potential, that meet certain investment criteria and are vetted, to find capital in the wallets of retail investors that want to deploy their money into those opportunities. So I would just that's what I'd have to say with respect to the point you just made.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And this is truly the most exciting part of this panel, where we are gonna hear the speakers talk to each other, challenge each other's idea. So thank you so much for this first pair of challengers, Bitania and Boom. Thank you so much. So now I'm gonna turn to the second pair of challengers, where Joshua is gonna challenge the intervention of Jessica. So yeah, on to you. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. To challenge Jessica, my question is simple. Jessica, agriculture in Africa has been promoted and showcased as a very dirty job for the young people. And no young person wants to get dirty. All of them are thinking about the blue economy, the white economy, or whatever. How best can we promote agriculture in a very sustainable way, and a way that is very comparative with the young people? Other than showing every agricultural photo you look at, there is a woman with a hoe, with a baby on the back, and that is not appealing. Can we have a way we can promote agriculture and it is looking nice, and young people want to dive into agriculture fully? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you for your question. And yes, you're right. Actually, the youth don't want to get their hands dirty to do to develop the agriculture. But I think to get agriculture more attractive, we should to invest in the creation of labs to develop new technical agricultures. So the youth can see that we can use technology, we can use science, and we can use knowledge of the older people to develop agriculture in Africa.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for that challenge. Thank you for the second pair of challenges. So now I'm gonna turn to Logwa. Would you please challenge Shushangan point that he made when he was answering his individual question earlier? Thank you. Lolwa, over to you. Oh, we cannot hear you. I think you're mute.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's good. Thank you so much.
Yes, hi, sorry. Raphael spoke about the strategies that are explored in order to get Africa back on track, in order to have innovative ideas so that we can, the youth can get financing and development for Africa. And it's not a challenge, it's rather a few remarks on what he said. I completely agree with what he said, but building on it, I do feel like it's very important for us to have innovative idea, to have different ideas that set us apart from the crowd. There are so many different companies doing so many great things within Africa, but they are always missing that little bit of differentiation, that little bit of difference that will make them grow bigger, that will make them more attractive to investors. The second thing that I want to build on is that differentiation is, of course, very, very important. However, the idea of value added via marketing, via branding, via having these little trinkets and these little details within your brand can make it go from selling a product for $1, for example, or to the equivalent, of course, of $1, to selling it for $50 and $60 and having it be more appealing to customers on an international level, but also more importantly to investors so that they can finance the business and they can invest in it and you'll be able to develop further. Our issue is not having great products. We already have great products. We have great raw materials. We have a huge youth population that is able to produce, that is able to create, that is able to come up with new ideas. Our issue lies within adding value to the product that we already make very well. It's that little bit of marketing, that little bit of branding, that little bit of just showing off the product.
Thank you so much, Olwa, for your remark. So yeah, I was really looking forward to this part of the panel because we get to see actual speakers speak to each other, make comments over each other's point, which we don't see oftentimes in other intervention or other meetings. So now I'm gonna call the next set of challengers, which is gonna be Shangan. If we can challenge Joshua's intervention, please. Over to you. Oh, and before that, if you can respond to Lolwa's comments, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. I think you are mute, Raphael. Yes.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, awesome. No, thanks for that, Lolwa. I think the one point for young people, particularly when it comes to attracting investments, I think we often always think of investors as foreigners or institutions that are going to invest in our businesses. And that's not always the case, particularly at a startup level. And I think the ecosystems that can be created within our communities is extremely important to getting our businesses on track. And I think what she's spoken to about making our products differentiated and ensuring that the marketing of our products is great is an extremely important point, because to attract local investment within your community, you need to ensure that, one, you're solving a challenge that the community has, and therefore your product or service is beneficial to your immediate group of potential investors. And I think that then begins to make you or put you on a level where your business is investable. And those are the retail investors that one of the other speakers mentioned. Those are the immediate retail investors that we should be looking to finance our businesses. So thank you for that, Lola. Joshua spoke quite a bit at length on a number of key points, and unfortunately, we couldn't hear all of the audio, but the points that we could hear, he laid out quite succinctly. And I think part of what I want to challenge him on is the youth dividend as he's laid out. A dividend we know can only come about as a result of an investment. Now, Africa has a youth population or a youth bulge, as it were, and the government investment in young people, and this is across all governments within the continent, the government investment in young people is what would make it a youth dividend, because that investment would then pay itself out over the coming years. How is government then gearing itself to ensure that young people are at the forefront of the growing economies, that young people are geared, or the economies are geared towards ensuring, and one of the speakers spoke, used the soccer analogy to say, how do governments ensure that the economies are geared towards young people so that capital can also then gear itself towards those very young people, to ensure that capital can follow the paths that governments lead. Oftentimes in economies, it's governments that lead and then capital then follows. So that's the first point. The second one is that he mentioned the issue of corporate governance. Now, corporate governance is quite important, particularly in ensuring that it attracts capital, because if you've got the right reporting structures, you've got the right people on your boards, etc., it's quite important to ensuring that you give security to capital, that the investments they make will be utilized correctly. But in a continent where our governments themselves have an issue of corporate governance, how do we then ensure that the investors aren't falling prey to the practices of non-corporate governance that they do at a government level? And what I mean by that is that big companies, we know, particularly when they come to Africa, have a tendency of utilizing tricks and methods that do not follow corporate governance procedures. And oftentimes we find a lot of our government officials involved in issues of corruption, etc. Now, those very same corporates are the ones who then drive capital at a lower scale. How do we then ensure that the practices that they're practicing at a government level are not then expected of youth businesses who are at a startup level? Because that then creates that barrier to entry of capital to startups, because already someone who knows that the manner in which they win government contracts is through bribery will know that a youth business that is not intending to bribe government officials is not going to make it. So therefore, how do you then level that playing field? And I think government's role in ensuring that that is taken care of is quite important. I just like.
Thank you so much, Raphael. Joshua, just to remind you, you have 1 to 2 minutes to respond to the challenge. We are running out of time, but we truly appreciate all your intervention and questions so far. Thank you so much. Yeah, Joshua, over to you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Elizabeth. And my challenge on that, you talk about youth dividend. I think youth dividend is only talked about when the African governments are investing in the young people. You can't talk about it when the governments are not putting young people as a priority. If they don't invest in the young people, then we can talk about the time bomb of young people. So if we have to talk about youth dividend on the African continent, then we need governments to step forward and invest in the young people, invest in the driving of the digital economy so the young people can meet the infrastructure and use it to develop, or drive innovation in agriculture so the young people could be attracted into agriculture and produce foods for the Middle East because it's fast growing economies and they don't have space. We can produce enough food in Africa and supply them. We can talk about economic dividend if we are having quality education for the young people. But as long as the African continent still believes in getting all the monies it has from the social security funds and go and invest it in other developed countries and don't develop it, put it into our economy to develop the young people to finance their innovations, we are lying to ourselves. There's no African youth population dividend. We have the African youth timely bomb, and it will blast anytime if we don't invest. Then secondly, talk about corporate governance in our countries. I think many of the countries that we are in Africa, I think we have grasped the economic governance, and at a certain point we are losing out on corporate governance, because when you start talking about things of transparency, responsibility, integrity, the people in power and people who are running these economies and these governments, I think some of these things elude them. And this makes the young people suffer because there's no service delivery, there's no proper infrastructure for the young people. And I think these are the things that we need to put our emphasis on. Governments need to come and stand where they have to support the young people and put their emphasis. I think that's what is missing. Our governments are talking a lot about the young people, about the advantage of the young people and investing less. I think there is a very, very dire need for governments to step up.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Thank you very much. So I'm now going to turn to the next challenger. That's going to be Boom to Lolwa, please.
Who am I challenging, please? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Yes, you are going to challenge Lolwa's point.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. So
no, it's fine. It's fine. I guess it's fine. I think we've had enough challenge today. Also, today was very truthful. Honestly, a truthful conversation, a fruitful conversation. I just wanted you to make comments of what Lolwa mentioned, her comments. But it's fine. It's fine if you are not able to do it. And anyway, we are running out of time. So I think we are just going to take one question from the audience, and that's it. We are going to wrap up the panel. Thank you so much. Joshua, can you take a question from us, from the audience, the live audience?
Yes, I'll do that on your behalf.
Thank you so much.
I think there are no questions at all. I think we can only wrap up. If you can allow me to say just one more thing. The African continent has one issue, and that's a problem. And if we are to solve the African problem, then we have to analogize the word problem. And for me, when I'm doing youth consultancy, it is what I do for them. I write the word problem in a vertical order, and I tell them, you're going to fall into problems if you don't plan. P is for planning in the word problem. You don't plan, you fall into problems. R is for reasoning. For everything you do as a government, as a young person, you have to reason on why you're doing it. O is opportunities. If Africa is to harness the population dividend, then we have to take young people as an opportunity. We don't do that, fall into problems. B is a blessing. As long as we are comfortable in our colonial built boundaries, and we don't think that our neighbors are a blessing to us, so we can extend a hand or we can go and do business there, then Africa is going to fall into problems. L is lessons. COVID has taught us that actually in this whole world, the African continent is not priority in many areas. And so we need to take the lessons as an African continent and pursue our cause. E is education. if you're not going to invest in education for the young people, for this generation, then don't talk about population dividend on the African continent. It's not there.
Thank you so much.
Is measures. The African continent needs to have measures to avert its problems and its solutions from the young people. Thanks very much. That's the minority for problems.
Thank you. We just wanted to thank the EFDB, the African Development Bank, the Economic Commission for Africa, and the UNDP Regional Bureau for Africa for another very successful African Economic Conference. We are running out of time, but we really want to thank you and appreciate all the people who had time to turn in today and the speakers. Thank you so much. And thank you to the YALDA organizing team and to Raymond Chapin for your remark. And I want to thank you all for a great session and sharing your knowledge, expertise, and question with us today. Until next time, please stay safe up there. Thank you so much and take care.